bring in our guest now. Ronnie Chatah is a political analyst and host of the Beirut Banyan podcast. He joins us from Beirut. Ronnie, thanks for your time. Real peace, said the Israeli ambassador, is on the way. Do you agree?
No, I do not see real peace happening anytime soon. What I see is something far more practical, at least in the near term, which is a permanent cessation of hostilities and a mechanism that allows for two things to happen over time: Israel's withdrawal from southern Lebanon and some solution to Hezbollah's weapons that makes sense for Lebanese sovereign concern. But peace, the way the Israeli ambassador is referring to, I think for the moment is a distant dream. I don't think the appetite is there. I don't think the conditions are there. That will probably be the end of a long journey. But these talks are very important in that they've opened the door to an emphasis on diplomacy and direct negotiations between the Lebanese and Israelis. And just one other point, this is the first agreement, the first bilateral agreement between both countries in 43 years. So it's a significant step forward for diplomacy.
Israeli media is reporting that at the moment, because we're still learning the details of this, that it only concerns two small areas. And I'm wondering if that is a sign there was not a lot of agreement in the room. Is this the bare minimum that the US could get Israel to put to paper?
Well, I don't know if I understood the question correctly. If it's a reference to the pilot zones, that's really an American-led initiative, that has yet to begin. And that is one way American moderation or American mediation could move things forward, in that giving the Lebanese government some breathing space, some political cover, diplomatic cover, to also take over what Hezbollah is leaving behind. This is a very delicate, very sensitive issue for the Lebanese army and Lebanon at large, meaning trying to risk real confrontation with Hezbollah, but also reclaim Lebanese sovereignty. The Lebanese ambassador to Washington mentioned reclaiming Lebanese sovereignty. She's not talking about the last few years. She's talking about the last 5 decades.
How then does the issue of Hezbollah complicate this matter, given that they were not in the talks and did not want to be?
That's a great question. Hezbollah is part of the problem. It's not necessarily part of the solution. Iran was part of the problem in that Lebanon became a second front for an Iranian-Israeli, Iranian-American war that not one Lebanese wanted, an extremely unpopular war in Lebanon, and a suicidal mission for Hezbollah, meaning Iran and Hezbollah, this proxy became less autonomous, completely dominated and directed by the Iranian regime. Hezbollah should not have a say in how this moves forward. On the contrary, this mechanism between the Americans and the Iranians, this deconfliction mechanism, could be a risk if that overrides what is happening in Washington, in that if there's a rush to preference to regional stability that gives Iran too much, you may see Lebanese sovereignty or the Lebanese state paying a big price for maintaining what Hezbollah is at the end of the day, which is Iran's proxy leverage, Iran's security leverage in the region. Hence, you have massive battles underway in 2026 between the Israelis and Hezbollah. This should not even happen to begin with. There should be no sub-state infrastructure like Hezbollah anyway. So I would not count on them for a solution. I would count on them more for a long-term problem and an existential threat to the Lebanese state.
Yeah, I guess you raise a point here, though, about the US wanting to hold up its side of the MOU, or wanting Iran to at least be happy that the MOU is being held up. And so does this agreement, or do you see this agreement, helping Lebanon in any way? Is there a path towards helping Lebanon, or is it simply serving as a vehicle to drive those US interests?
Well, that's a good question. And I would actually maybe answer it on the other end, which is American attention span tends to be very short, in particular in a country like Lebanon. The 1983 agreement, the last bilateral agreement that was in a way a memorandum of understanding with American supervision, that agreement collapsed less than a year afterwards due to violence, due to attacks on peacekeepers, due to embassy bombings, and in many ways back then the Syrian occupation persisting and growing and expanding in Lebanon. You could see a scenario where the Americans, if they sense that Lebanon is a lost cause and that this is just a show, a performance on the side, with preference to keeping things in a way stable for the Iranian regime. You could see a scenario where the Americans see Lebanon in a way as a lost cause permanently, as a failed state. I do not think right now we're there. What needs to change is not really American attention span. It will remain short even with administration change. What you need to say is what you need to see is a Lebanese state doing something that it's uncomfortable doing. It's only done a few times, which is request serious international support, international protection, and international action. Meaning, you cannot see UNIFIL observer forces just leave at the end of the year. It has to be replaced. And the discussions are happening already on what that looks like. Also, you need international assistance in disarming Hezbollah. The Lebanese army cannot be tasked with challenging what was the most impressive paramilitary force on the planet and one of the most, in a way, excelling terrorist groups in modern history. The Lebanese state, Lebanese army cannot handle that on its own.
And so therefore, why is the Israeli military being allowed or being given free rein then to have an attempt at that? If you describe Hezbollah in such not glorified terms, but, you know, that you've given them an assessment, a fair assessment of their power and their leverage here, Israel was not naive to what it was walking into. Is the issue not with this deal the fact that it doesn't include Hezbollah and that at the end of the day, whether they are or they aren't, they are going to be an issue in Lebanon with its governance, whether Israel is there or not. And Israel being there is not helpful to resolving the issue of Hezbollah. That is a separate issue, and Israel's presence in the country only complicates things further in terms of resolving that issue.
You're absolutely right, and I'll answer it in both ways. First and foremost, I do not believe the Israelis are willing or even able to disarm Hezbollah. I think they're trying to divorce what they can from what Iran built in Lebanon as it exists through Hezbollah and that threat towards Israel. They're trying to degrade it to a point that I think, and I assume, they will leave again even if Hezbollah remains armed. And I think the point, and going back to the earlier emphasis of your question, the point is to give the Lebanese state the diplomatic cover, not just the pretense for it, but a serious push to get the Israelis out as well. This cannot end in a permanent battlefield situation where the Israelis maintain posts in the south like they did in late 2024, before this round of fighting erupted in February and literally March 1st of 2026. You can't have the Israelis just maintaining strategic posts and alongside a Hezbollah that remains armed indefinitely. This has to end with the Lebanese state being able to do two things: get the Israelis out and disarm Hezbollah. We're not there yet. And I'll just add one more thing. In 1983, it was 30-some meetings before an agreement was agreed to, the May 17, 1983 agreement. We've only had a few meetings that led to this round. It's fast. It's moving very, very quickly. You don't want to see this process move too fast, where the Lebanese state finds itself unable to do both at the same time and risks really being a failed state. You don't want that to be the end. You want to preserve what is left of Lebanon's independence. And to do that, you have to get the Israelis out. You have to get Iran out as well. Otherwise, Lebanon remains a battlefield zone forever.
Ronnie Chatah joining us from Beirut. Thank you.